Sunday morning is starting out on a good note. This Sunday morning we'll talk about gospel music. Our guests are Mr. Lloyd Jones and Brother Jessie Samuels. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you.
And both of you for a number of years have had a lot of input and know a lot about gospel music, not only here in Southeast Texas but across the nation. And we are glad to have you with us this morning. First of all, Brother Jessie, exactly what is gospel music?
Gospel music is music that we sing called gospel, religious words. As I might have said before, it's similar to, came from gospel, rhythm and blues, similar the same thing. Somebody said the other day, said, only different in gospel and the blues, that on Saturday night they dance from side to side on the blues, and on Sunday morning they shout up and down on the gospel.
Okay.
They both expressing their feeling, you know.
Okay. Now, Brother Jessie, how far back does your connection with gospel music go?
It goes all the way back to 1952. And worked with them for about 10 years. Same time, we worked with other gospel groups, and they went from the local to professional groups. And Sam Cook and the Soul Stirrers was one of our first major groups that we worked with as a promoter. Just before that, we worked with another group of people called the Pilgrim Travelers with another organization who kind of got us started into the professional area.
Okay. And Mr. Jones, would you define gospel music?
I think it's just a happy way of praising God.
Has it changed over the years?
Oh yes, considerably. Jess and I were talking earlier, and I believe it's become more sophisticated. You know.
That is true. We went from the regular gospel singing we call hard gospel singing to more contemporary gospel now in the last 10 years. And now you can't always tell from the sound. You used to tell the gospel from the rock singing by the band size. But now our gospel groups have improved and put a band behind their music as well. And KALO is good.
Okay. Let's go back to the 50s. Gospel music back then, what exactly was it? How did it come into being? When you say you were a gospel singer in the 50s, did you have a doctorate degree in music, or how did the people who were singing gospel music get started? What were their roots?
Well, the way the quartet groups got started back in those days, they didn't have to have a degree in music because they didn't have one. What they would do is 3 or 4 guys get together and they organize a group, 4 people probably, with a bass singer, baritone, a tenor, and a lead singer. And they'll get into the church, most time into someone's house in a room back there, and they'll start patting on themselves and singing until they get it all together, you know, and get a pretty good tune going. Before you know it, they were sounding pretty good, and they just kept improving until they got to be professionals at what they was doing.
Wayne, you know, there are 3 categories of music that's related. It's gospel, rhythm and blues, and country and western.
Okay.
If you listen closely, you can tell they're closely related. We now are trying to increase our gospel music play in this area because of the response from the citizens of Beaumont and the surrounding areas, you know.
Why do you think the people, I guess, have such a need for gospel music now, I guess, as compared to 5, 10 years ago?
Well, it's the same. Now, the area may have grown, but it's always been the same, especially in the South. Gospel music is well received. Back when I was in radio regular, we had gospel music only on Sundays.
Okay. And
then we went to, during the week, Monday through Friday, for an hour, I believe, no, 30 minutes, from 6 in the morning till 6:30. But right now, it's on every day, every day of the week. Jessie has a gospel program from 6 in the morning, Monday through Friday, 6 to 10, right?
Monday through Saturday.
Monday through Saturday, I'm sorry, I apologize. And then Gerald Loeb's on Sunday mornings, right? 6 to noon?
6 to noon.
And then Mr. Tubbs, Reverend Tubbs?
Noon to 6.
Right. You know.
so more and more gospel music now as compared to a few years ago.
Sure.
That is true. And I was in Houston over the weekend, and there was a young man who works over there at the radio station. He went down to Baytown. They bought a station in Baytown, I understand. And they having gospel there from 6 until 10 at night. And many of the cities across the country today, like Dallas, Fort Worth, down south, they got gospel station on all day. And it's a demand for it these days. Like you said, it seems like there's more demand today than there was 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. Gospel was going pretty strong back in those days, and then all at once the station decided it wasn't no good for them anymore, and they took it off. And it got now wasn't very much gospel going on in some of the major cities, but today it's out there. I don't know whether because of the economy or what, but people seem to want to get closer to God today. And I have many people who call me and tell me during my show that my program, my gospel program, wakes up in the morning and gives them a new look on life for the whole day. And they don't want nothing else but that.
Now, you mentioned gospel music in the South. Certainly, it's not limited to the South, but there's a more positive response in the South, say, than in other parts of the country.
Yes, as Jessie said earlier, a lot of Southerners picked up their gear, moved north, moved east, moved west. And with them, they took this love for gospel music. But it originated here in the South, you know, as from slavery. And it's more so, if you just look back, some of the big rhythm and blues or pop singers, their roots gospel. One, Al Green, very popular R&B artist at one time, he's gone back to gospel. Ray Charles, I can name Gladys Knight, Sam Cooke, the late Sam Cooke, you know. Aretha Franklin. Sure, you know, all these people come up in the church. And I'm not saying that they're out of the church, you know, per se, but they're still in the church, but singing pop music. Al, of course, went back to gospel and is now a preacher, and is doing very well.
Brother Jesse, you want to add to that?
Well, just name a few more. Like you said, Al came from the gospel field and went to the popular world and made it big out there. And I understand Al canceled $1 million worth of dates to go back to the church. And I thought that was great of him to do that. Also, young man.
Johnny Taylor, you know, you work with.
Oh, yeah, Johnny sung with me quite a bit when he was in the gospel with the Soulsters. Johnny came to the Soulsters to replace Sam Cooke. And he worked there for some number of years, and then he went Father Sam's footsteps to try to make some money too, I reckon, because in the gospel, you know, ain't that much money to be made. They don't pay that much. So Johnny went over after he was called to preach. He's an ordained minister, but he's singing love songs for a living today. And I look for him to come back to the church before it's over with real soon. Also, you might know a fellow by the name of Joe Simon. Joe Simon started out singing gospel songs. I know some friends of mine in Port Arthur sung with him some years ago. And about 3 or 4 months ago, he got called to preach.
I think he preached his first sermon not too far from here in Louisiana.
That's right, down in Louisiana. So Joe is, tell you right now, so he is preaching for the Lord, and he is living for the Lord, and he won't be singing choking kind anymore.
Now, are there groups that have come or remained since the Sam Cooke era in gospel that are still singing the same kind of gospel that they sung, 30 years ago?
Not exactly. They changed a little bit. Like the Soulsters, Sam Cooke group, you know that they the Soulsters because of their sound. They haven't changed it that much so you wouldn't recognize them. But anything changes a little bit, so they kind of modified it up a little bit and put the music with. Now they're using the guitar and the drummers and bass guitar. Where back in Sam's days, first days of the gospel, they didn't have music. They just sung without music. And they got their rhythm from maybe clapping their hands or patting their leg, But today they have as I said, the guitars and bass and the drums.
Now, out in the radio world, gospel music, you indicated locally there is more of a demand for it here. Are radio stations in general now paying more attention to gospel music more so than, say, they did 20 years ago? Thinking, well, gospel music goes on Sunday mornings at 30 minutes, and people will give them a little bit of gospel on Sunday mornings, and that's it.
That's a good point. That's a good point, because some years ago, you only carried gospel on Sundays. Now they found that gospel is accepted, and they put it on during the week. And it's fine. It was fine with me then, but they thought they couldn't sell it, the radio station. Now they found they can sell it. I mean, has gone to it 7 days a week, and, which is good. You know, the people wanted it and needed it.
What about the place of gospel music in the church community itself? Has that changed over, say, the last 30 years? The way the clergymen look at gospel music, its importance in the church setting?
Yes, I think so. Very much so. Well, they used to have this one senior choir maybe singing in the church, but now they have the senior choir singing, they have the mass choir, and they have the gospel chorus, and you may go in one church and find 5 or 6 different groups that singing, and they have their various songs to sing. But anytime you go to a church and find a good choir there, good singing organization there, you'll find quite a few members in that church. And I would say the churches that don't have the singers, they don't have very many members following them. That's half of them.
Is gospel music somewhat like a calling? Oftentimes you hear ministers saying that they were called to the ministry. Is it a gift to be able to just get up and sing gospel music?
I would think so. Very much. It's a gift. And you have to be dedicated to do so, you know, because in gospel music, singing in the group, just like anything else you go into, you always have some difficult times or days with people, you know, trying to deal with them. And if you wasn't dedicated to it, wasn't called to do it, had some God in your heart to do it, you would walk away and forget about it sometimes because of the changes you go through with, you know, with your directors sometimes, the musicians, maybe just members that are standing next to you, giving you a little problem. So that'll run you off if you wasn't very dedicated to it.
I guess there's a dividing line between gospel music and all other types of music. You mentioned the calling from God. If you're singing some other type of music, perhaps it's because you have that talent and there is a demand for that talent. But it would seem different with gospel music in that certainly it's a talent too. Right. But there is some type of religious inspiration or a Christian calling to inspire you to sing.
That's correct. That's correct. You know, years ago, I was a program director. We got quite a few complaints because we put gospel on in between rhythm and blues, and it wasn't acceptable during that time.
It's a sacred type of
right. You know, that just doesn't sound right. But now it's okay. You know, and there was bad programming. At least the audience thought right. But now it's acceptable.
Okay, we're going to take a short break right here. When we come back, we'll talk about the lady called the First Lady of Gospel Music, Miss Shirley Caesar. But first of all, we'll have church news. Take a short break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Williams. Okay. She got married about 4 years ago to Bishop Williams of the Church of God in Christ. And Shirley, she started out at the age of 18, back in around 1958, 59, with the Caravan. And she sung the Caravan for many years, and she went on about 15 years ago, and she's been on top ever since. And she's one of the world's greatest gospel singers. Right now, she got one of the biggest hits in the gospel world. Been on Billboard magazine for the last 4 months, I believe, her top LP, with a title of Hold My Mule. She tells a story about an old man that was out in the cotton field flying, and he asked the deacon to hold his mule because they went out there because he joined this church. And the story goes on to say that, as you know, some churches you're not supposed to shout and act up in, you know, sophisticated church. So they told him he couldn't be doing this in this church. And they went out to his farm to tell him this, and he told him to hold his mule. If he couldn't shout in that church, he's going to shout right here, and that's going to go real big for him.
She has performed at the White House. She has performed at the Music City. She's performed everywhere. She's won 5 Grammy Awards.
Right.
What makes Shirley Caesar Shirley Caesar? And she's more than just a gospel singer.
That is true. She's also a councilman now in Durham, North Carolina. She's a politician now, so she said that's the only way she felt she could go back and help her community by getting involved with the community, you know. Since she had the privilege to do so, so she ran for the councilman seat and won, and now she's going home every Monday after every second Sunday to make sure she's home for councilman meeting.
And she will be coming to our area very soon.
Right. Right, she'll be here on the 16th of October at 3 o'clock at the Julie Rogers Theater, as you noticed. And along with that would be the Williams Brothers, also the Pilgrim Jubilees, And from Texas A&M, they got a mass choir up there. My daughter sings in. They're coming down with about 2 bus loads, and they are great.
Let me interrupt her. Did she get her talent from her father?
No, she picked it up from her.
Mr. Jones, what makes Shirley Caesar Shirley Caesar? Why is she always packs the house wherever she goes, and she really is a legend in her own time.
Well, I think because of the recordings, and I think Shirley is sincere in what she sings, and she really believes in the Lord. She's been doing this for years and years. You know, it's not uncommon for Shirley to have 2 or 3 records on the charts in 1 year. And she's just a super person. We were talking earlier about rhythm and blues. I heard a story about Shirley that record companies tried unsuccessfully for years to get Shirley to cross over to sing rhythm and blues. You may be more familiar with it.
Well, I heard the story too that she told her they would give her a bunch of money to sing rhythm and blues or rock and roll, as it said. And Shirley told them, said, yeah, she'll sing it, but if she's gonna rock, she's gonna be rocking for Jesus.
Okay.
That's the way the story goes.
Now, one of you have been around her for quite some time, and you know her personally. What about the musicians of her caliber, the groups like her that sing with her, that travel with her, that are in her same category, so to speak? You want to tell us something about those people?
Yes, I've been with Shirley quite a bit, you know, on stage, also at lunch or whatever. And her group is a very good group too, and like I said earlier, she's a Christian type person, and she'll never got too big to know you, you know. I went into the Astrodome one day, she was performing there, and I walked in, and I happened to go by where she was, area that she was in, doing a mistake almost, just accidentally, you know, not looking for her. And the first thing she said, Jessie, you from Port Arthur? Yeah. She said, well, I'm going to be here overnight, so if y'all want to come by, y'all come by, and we'll go out to lunch or something, you know. So she's an everyday person, and you never get too small for her, Shirley.
Now, what about the gospel music circuit as such? There is that sort of animal existing today, isn't there?
Gospel music, or say it again?
The circuit. They travel from place to place.
Yes. They go from, I would say, from Miami to the West Coast and all over. Like when she come to me on the 16th, she's going to work Baton Rouge that Saturday night. And then she'll be in Houston that night for 8 o'clock. And she performs here in Beaumont at 3 o'clock. And it's on and on. They just go around the world performing and working for the Lord.
The gospel music caravans are any different from the rhythm and blues caravans?
I really don't think so. I don't. You know,
A lot of hard work.
Right, you know. Same sincerity.
All that's different is the rhythm and blues pays a whole lot more money.
Okay. That is true. Now, what about the gospel music singers and their place in the church settings? You mentioned briefly earlier how the churches that have the good choirs, they usually have the largest types of memberships.
Right.
Why is it such an important part of the church community these days?
Well, I think it's important because if you got a good choir there, then you encourage the younger folks to come out and want to be a part of it. They can go in and enjoy themselves. And then have the minister bring a good sermon. Well, all this go good together. But if you just have the minister there and he's going to tell you, preach a sermon, telling you if you don't get your life right, you know you're going to hell or whatever, well then that's don't hold some of the folks that haven't been saved yet. But a non-saved person will go to church to hear a good song. And I say while you got him there, well then you have a chance to save him. So I think it's very important to have good choirs in the church, or good singing in the church, because that'll bring the man off the streets in to listen, where he wouldn't stop to listen to maybe the wood.
Now, we talked about good choirs. How do you get that good choir? Is there a magic formula to find that person who has that gospel gift, or what are the churches doing, or what is the gospel music community doing to find these choirs, to expose these people?
Well, what today, and for the last few years, what we have what we call a gospel music workshop. The choir director and the musician in that particular church, they bring in other experts to come in and work with them, and bring in various people from throughout the community to join in and work with this gospel workshop. And they'll do it for a week or two. And once they get through with the workshop, then they have a musical. And that kind of plays off the top of what they have learned over the week with their new songs. And now we're doing it all over the cities, and most churches are doing it today. So everybody have improved their choir and their membership singing.
So the Shirley seasons of tomorrow are perhaps right in the local church choirs across our area today.
That's true.
You know, you'd be surprised how much talent we have right here in this area that hasn't had a chance to be exposed, you know, or discovered. You know what's surprising to me? Years ago, when I attended a big gospel concert, but Jessie had very big part in it, was the young people that attended. It was very surprising. And each time that I've attended a gospel concert, I had a bunch of young people.
Okay. We're just about out of time, Brother Jessie. What do you see in the future for gospel music?
I see it growing every day, and it's naturally getting bigger all the time. I was down in Memphis a few months ago, and we had them in line about 10 deep, and about 8 or 9 different lines trying to get a pass or a ticket to get in to see the gospel. And with the contemporary music changing over a little bit, like the Winers, Vicky Winers and the Winers, and also the Commissions, they are changing from the basic old gospel to the new type.
Okay.
And
So it's all looking positive.
right.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this Sunday morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and hope you do have a pleasant Sunday. See you next week.